Yeah, so this can be a bit of a different video. Instead of lots of cut together scenes, it's going to be kind of just me sitting here talking. I realize that being here, there's a whole bunch of knowledge that I think I should probably share over time. And the first one, and probably the most crucial thing, is how much do safaris really cost? Let me get this out of the way. They're pretty expensive, especially if you're coming from outside the country. It's definitely something that adds up. But what I keep on seeing is that people are really being taken advantage of by prices. Maybe not so much now in the times of pandemics, but pretty soon things will be back to normal and people will be overpaying for things that they probably shouldn't be overpaying for. So let's get started. Focusing on now is the Serengeti, which for those of you in the States is a landmass the size of Connecticut. And it is actually part of a greater Mara National Wildlife Area. One of the more famous connectors to that is the Ngorongoro Crater, which is a collapsed volcano that happened so many millions of years ago, as well as the Masai Mara up north. Now, the Masai Mara is just a teeny weeny little sliver of the whole region. The interesting thing, though, is that it gets 300,000 visitors a year, whereas the Serengeti gets 200,000. The reason for that is Masai Maras in Kenya, they market it better and it's cheaper. The Serengeti, on the other hand, much more expensive, and it kind of has that, when you say Serengeti, everybody instantly thinks, safari. But let me just say, it is worth it. Let's run through some costs. Types of main costs. There's going to be fixed and variable. I'm going to run through both. In terms of your fixed costs, these are your government fees. This is what it's going to cost no matter what. You can't really change this unless if there's an outside force actually changing it. So if you're coming from outside the country, you're looking at paying $70 per day just to enter the park in terms of park fee. Just to be in there. Now, instead of per day, I should probably say that's 24 hours. So if you enter at 6 p.m., you have until 6 p.m. the next day. That's important to know because you kind of can plan ahead of actually what you're going to be doing. Probably mention that the prices are slightly rounded, so it could end up being a few cents more or $1 less, and it's also including tax. So if you think that oh look, you know what, I actually found it for $55 a night, not 70. Now, when you add the tax to it, it's going to be 70. And again, the only way that's going to change is if the government comes in and changes it. If you're a local, that price is significantly lower, and if you're a resident like we are, that price becomes $35. So expensive, but still a bit manageable. $1.50 an hour to be in probably one of the most amazing places in the world kind of makes it worth it, right? It makes sense. Now, here's the kicker, though. The second fixed cost is the concession fee. The concession fee, think of it as a hotel tax. It's a flat $60 per person per night fee. So if you are staying at a lodge, a tented camp, a hotel, inside the Serengeti, you are paying that $60 per person per night, no matter what. So all of a sudden, you're up at the $70 plus the $60, and you haven't even paid for anything else per day. So you're at $130 before we do anything else. So keep that in mind as we kind of move forward, because it does kind of come into play. It's actually the hotels, and these vary widely based on where you stay, both in terms of the hotel, the lodge, the quality, but it also varies kind of where you stay, like within, let's say, the general vicinity of the park. It's a massive place, right? So it definitely varies. There's low season, there's mid season, there's high season, probably even platinum season, which is kind of that period of Christmas to New Year's where they really jack the prices up. Really, I'm going to be looking at, let's say, even if it's like a 5-star hotel, there's still places in the Serengeti that are going to cost you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a night. I'm not talking about those. Those probably have private plane entrances. No, but in terms of accessibility, you get in a car, you drive, get to a hotel, and you move on for that. So during really peak high season, you're looking at $550 to $600 a night for a double room, which is kind of can that's especially in the Serenera region. The Serengeti is right in the middle of it. It's where, everyone's kind of coming into, hub and spoke. As a result, it's very much a churn and burn type. You get these lodges, they're massive, and they suck. And whatever you do, let me just, safari hack number one, do not stay at the Serenera Wildlife Lodge. Do not. They're terrible people that run it. The staff is nice, and it's also just not a nice place to stay. So just steer clear. Plenty of other wonderful places. Make your way out to Mbalangeti. We love it. I will always say that. It's where we stay. Take your time. Get there. It's private, secluded, wonderful people. So not only that, when picked up, not only that, you also have, that can be $500-$600 a night if you're staying in the Serenera during peak season. It may go down $100, a little bit more during non-peak, but during peak season, you can probably get $200 less if you're staying a bit further out, which I would highly recommend. So let's say you're getting a room for $400 a night between two people. That's $200 a person. Add that with the $130 already, and you're up to $330 a day, and we're not even done yet. To remember, and it's a variable cost, much like the hotel, is that your car hire, right? Your safari car. There's a pretty standard safari car, standard size. The drivers kind of vary, but not. It's hard to get a bad one, but it's also rare to get a really good one. So it's kind of that 80% middle. Just don't appear in the middle of the Serengeti. You got to drive there. And a good rule of thumb. Now it comes down a little bit with more days you go, but it comes out to be about $400 per day per car. That really includes your fuel, your driver, your insurance. And also tends to be most park fees, except if you're crossing over into the Ngorongoro crater, you're going to end up paying something like $300 per car to go in. But in general, for the Serengeti, you're not really paying that extra fee. So if you're going with 4 people, all right, you're looking at $100 per day, and that's obviously going to go from $100 onto the $330. So you're looking at about $430 per day, not including tips, not including drinks, because you got to pay for drinks at the hotels. They might provide the food, but you got to buy the drinks and the trinkets and everything like that. So probably without even being too overboard, you're looking at $450 per day per person for the safari. So as I said, not super cheap, but definitely well worth it. Direct questions, please, write them below, or feel free to get in touch, because I'm happy to break it down. It's really difficult to kind of go into everything, especially there's so many variables. COVID right now, that the hotels are much cheaper, but you're still paying the fixed fee, right? So still $130 for someone coming outside of Tanzania, regardless, right? Even if you get a cheap hotel, and the drivers are still about the same price. So there's always so many levers that you can actually pull. So that actually makes my number one tip, my number one takeaway from this: get an itemized invoice for any package offer that you get. Sometimes these cheap, all-inclusive, one price and go, they actually end up being a lot more expensive because they're hiding costs in the invoice. If you start seeing packing fees, and you start seeing other fees that I really haven't mentioned, these places are trying to rip you off. And there's probably a couple thousand tour operators around, many of you who don't even own their own cars. They actually subcontract out the cars. All they're doing is pulling things together. They're making their money by siphoning them off money from you. So if you are going on safari, get an itemized invoice, especially if you're going to the Serengeti. If you're going anywhere, get the itemized invoice, and understand that there's fixed costs, such as park fees, such as sometimes entrance fees, and the concession fee if you're staying. The variable fees are definitely your hotel and your driver, and those you can kind of negotiate on. If anything else is showing up, give them the fingers and go to the next one. Again, having questions, reach out. Happy safaring. I can't recommend it enough. Just be aware of what you're paying for so there's no surprises. All right, guys.